Okay, so the Mushaf we have in front of us, this is Surah Al Imran. It's page 67. So if you have a Mushaf beside you, you can verify. And the first ayah, we have it both in the oral narration. For the riwayah of Hafs, we recite it wasari'u, and also the Mushaf sent to Kufa had a waw. And Hafs, his chain of narration goes through Abdullah bin Habib al-Sulami, who was the reciter sent to Kufa. So Abdullah bin Habib al-Sulami recited it wasari'u, and the Mushaf sent with him was printed with the waw, wasari'u. Okay, so that's that example. Now I'm going to switch to a Mushaf that was kept in Medina for the public use. Remember the Mushaf Uthmani, there are two in Medina, one for public and one for private. So we're going to go to an example. I hope you see this Mushaf. This Mushaf is printed to accommodate the recitation brought to us through Qalun, one of the reciters, and his chain goes to Zayd bin Thabit, who is the one who remained in Medina. And he recites it Sari'u, and also the Mushaf that was kept in Medina is without the waw. So here's how you see, this is not a forgotten letter. This is how the Mushaf Uthmani was for the Mushaf al-Medina, for example, and also the reciter recited it, Zayd bin Thabit, who was assigned to remain in Medina, recited it Sari'u. And here I want to now mention a piece of information that I was asked about before, but I might have postponed it for later. Some of you might have heard a statement like, هذا حرف زيد, هذا حرف أبي, ذلك حرف عبد الله bin Abbas. Meaning the translation would be the harf of Zayd, the harf of Ubay. What is meant by harf in that context? It's not equal to the harf meant by the 7 ahruf. What is meant by harf when we say the harf of Zayd, it means it's a name given to the way Zayd bin Thabit anhu recited the Qur'an, because that's how he learned it from the Prophet ﷺ. So an aspect of harfu Zayd would be that he would read Sari'u without a waw. Okay? If you want to imagine it in today's terms, we might coin it as Qira'at Zayd, but it's not called that. It's called harfu Zayd, meaning it's the way Zayd recited the Qur'an. But it's not one of the 7 ahruf. So the word harf is just a joint word, but it has completely different meanings. When we say the 7 ahruf means the 7 ways of differences that can be found in these Qur'an, versus harf Ubay or harf Zayd, which means the way Zayd used to recite, or the way Ubay used to recite. And of course, Zayd and Ubay and any Sahabi the scholars coined their way of reciting as harfu Umar, for example, it wouldn't be from their own ijtihad, it would be because that's how they learned it directly from the Prophet ﷺ. Questions? So I think we're good, inshallah ta'ala. So now it's time to start the khilafah of Ali radiyallahu anhu. So we left off talking about al-Masahif al-Uthmaniyya, how they were sent. 5 of them were sent, 4 of them were sent outside of Medina, 2 were kept in Medina. With each a copy, there was one reciter at least who recited according to exactly their recitation would match the letters of the Quran, the Rasm al-Mushaf. So there was not a mix and match between the reciter and the Mushaf. So it did not happen that, for example, Mushaf al-Kufa had wasari'u and then the reciter read it without a waw. No, that would be a problem. The reciter would recite it according to how it was scribed, And that's how they were chosen to be sent with them. And that's how the reciter received the recitation from his teachers. So now, alhamdulillah, the problem of the differences and fighting was largely reduced, but it didn't eliminate everything. So although each region, now I'm reading from the slide, had the best teachers, alhamdulillah, for their specific recital, there remained some problems, which it's basically the growth pains. When a country grows, when more Muslims come into Islam, it's wonderful, but with those come some growth pains that need to be addressed. So one problem was, now a lot of the Muslims that were entering Islam are now beyond the Arabian Peninsula. They don't speak Arabic. And if they did, it wasn't their mother tongue. Okay, and even those who are born to Arab tribes who then travel because they're teachers or they want to do trade or for whatever reason, when they're mixing with the non-Arabs, they're using less of the Arabic language and they're hearing less of it, and they're hearing and using more of the mistakes that happen. And I think us living in the United States of America, we realize the huge effect on that, especially if we're first generation immigrants, and if we grew up in another country, we definitely see the huge gap between how our parents spoke Arabic, how we speak Arabic, and how our children speak Arabic. Like, we're living, breathing this problem. And it is a problem, especially if we care deeply about our Arabic language. It is a problem to try to maintain this. For some reason, the chat again is not showing up. I don't know why. Let me try again I'm going to close some programs to see if there's some interference. So I got a notification that there was a chat. I just can't see it. Although I am clicking on the chat box. Oh, there it showed up when I moved. It showed up by itself. Okay, alhamdulillah, so there's no question, inshallah. So the Arabic skills began to deteriorate. With the deteriorating Arabic skills, we have the Mushaf Othmaniyya, the written form, was not meant to be learned from. It should be only a reference by a teacher who had memorized the Qur'an already. But as copies were being made of the Mushaf Othmaniyya, it was more and more being relied on as a source versus a backup. And I think for us today, we can relate to that greatly. When we sit and try to memorize Qur'an, how do we memorize Qur'an? Do we memorize it by going to our teacher and they recite to us and we repeat after them each and every ayah and then we collect it? Or is the major effort on us at home? We recite the ayah, we open the Qur'an, we make marks, we put arrows, we put underlines to show the mutashabihat, and then we may or may not even listen to something on YouTube, and then we go to our teacher and actually do the final stage, which is the tasmiyah. And that's what had started happening back then. The students became less and less reliant on the teacher because there are so many of them, and more reliant on trying to read the Qur'an. But the Qur'an was, the script of the Qur'an was not meant to be used that way. It was void of all those dots and fatha dhamma kasra. So people were messing up. They weren't able to correctly recite, even if they used it as a reference. Tamam? So now what? Now what's going to happen? They need a solution.